Elena Harper stood on the edge of the cliff, her boots sinking into the damp Oregon soil, staring at the Pacific Ocean as it roared below, as if it could swallow her secrets. At 28, she'd learned to carry her heart like a locked diary, but tonight, it felt heavier than ever. Her mother's voice still echoed in her mind. The bakery goes to Sophia. You're not ready, Elena. Not ready. 2 words that had carved a wound deeper than Elena could admit. The Harper family bakery, Sweet Tide, wasn't just a business. It was her grandmother's legacy, her childhood haven of flour-dusted aprons and warm vanilla. Elena had spent her teenage years perfecting sourdough, dreaming of the day she'd run the shop. But last week, her mother, Diane, had handed the keys to Sophia, Elena's younger sister by 2 years, the perfect daughter who checked all the boxes. Straight, engaged to a lawyer, and effortlessly charming. Elena, with her flannel shirts and quiet love for women, was apparently too much of a risk. She kicked a pebble off the cliff, watching it vanish into the waves. The coastal town of Astoria stretched behind her, its quaint streets lined with Victorian houses and the faint hum of tourist chatter. Sweet Tide was the heart of this place, a beacon for locals and visitors alike. Elena had poured her soul into it, even after coming out at 19, when Diane's smile had tightened, and her father Tom had stopped meeting her eyes. She'd stayed, hoping love could outweigh their disappointment. But now, at 28, she was still the outsider in her own family. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Nora Callahan, her best friend since high school, the one person who'd never judged her. Meet me at the pier? Need to see you. Elena's heart skipped, a familiar warmth spreading through her chest. Nora, with her sharp wit and green eyes that seemed to see through Elena's walls, had always been her anchor. But lately, their late-night talks and lingering glances felt like something more. Something Elena was too afraid to name. She drove her beat-up Jeep to the pier, the salty air whipping through the open windows. Nora was already there, leaning against the railing, her short black hair tousled by the wind, her leather jacket catching the last light of dusk. At 30, Nora was a freelance photographer, always chasing the next story, her life as untamed as the ocean. You look like you're carrying the world, Nora said, her voice soft but piercing. Elena managed a half-smile. Just my family's rejection, no big deal. Nora's eyes narrowed. Diane gave the bakery to Sophia, didn't she? Elena nodded, the sting fresh. Said I'm not stable enough. Too many distractions. Nora scoffed, tossing a pebble into the water. Distractions? You mean being yourself? God, your mom's stuck in the 90s. She stepped closer, her hand brushing Elena's arm. You're the heart of that place, Elle. You know that. Elena's throat tightened. Nora's touch, brief as it was, sent a spark through her. She wanted to lean into it, to let herself feel what she'd buried for years. But fear held her back. Fear of losing Nora, of ruining the one person who made her feel whole. It's done, she said instead. Sophia's got it now. She'll probably turn it into some Instagram aesthetic nightmare. Nora laughed, but her eyes stayed serious. You're not giving up, are you? I don't know what I'm doing, Elena admitted. I thought they'd see me eventually. Not the lesbian daughter, just me. Nora's hand lingered on Elena's arm, steady and warm. I see you, she said quietly. I always have. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Elena's breath caught, but before she could respond, her phone rang. Diane's name flashed on the screen. Elena hesitated, then answered. Mom? What's wrong? Elena, I need you at the bakery. Now. Diane's voice was sharp, panicked. It's Sophia. There's a problem. Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Just come, Diane snapped, then hung up. Nora raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise? Something's up with Sophia, Elena said, already moving toward her Jeep. I've gotta go. I'm coming with you, Nora said, falling into step beside her. You're not facing this alone. The drive to Sweet Tide was a blur, Elena's mind racing. Sophia had always been the golden child, the one who never faltered. What could have gone wrong? The bakery's lights glowed as they pulled up, the familiar sign. A wave curling around a loaf of bread, mocking Elena with its permanence. Inside, Diane stood behind the counter, her face pale. Sophia was nowhere in sight. Mom, what's going on? Elena asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Diane's eyes darted to Nora, then back to Elena. It's complicated. Sophia's in trouble. Big trouble. Spit it out, Mom, Elena said, her patience thinning. Diane took a shaky breath. She's been stealing from the bakery. Thousands of dollars. It's all over social media. Someone leaked the books. The town's talking, and we're ruined unless we fix this. Elena froze, the words sinking in like a slow poison. Sophia, the perfect daughter, had betrayed the family. And now Diane was looking at Elena, not with pride but with desperation. Elena's mind reeled as she stood in the bakery, the scent of fresh bread now tainted by betrayal. Sophia, her sister, the one who'd always been handed everything, had stolen from Sweet Tide? The accusation felt like a punch, knocking the air from her lungs. She glanced at Nora, whose green eyes burned with quiet fury, a silent promise to stand by her. Thousands, Elena repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. How did this even happen? Diane wrung her hands, her usual composure frayed. I didn't know. She was handling the finances. I trusted her. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Elena saw her mother as fragile, not the unyielding matriarch who dismissed her dreams. The books were audited last week. Someone, probably a competitor, leaked it online. People are saying we're done, Elena. The bank's threatening to pull our loan. Nora stepped forward, her tone sharp. Where's Sophia now? Diane's eyes flicked away. She left. Took off this morning. Said she couldn't handle the pressure. Elena's heart sank. Sophia had run, leaving the mess for someone else to clean. Typical. She'd always been the one to smile for the cameras, to charm the customers, while Elena needed dough in the back, invisible but essential. So what do you want from me? Elena asked, her voice colder than she intended. You made it clear I'm not part of this. Diane flinched, but her desperation won out. I was wrong, okay? I need you, Elena. You know this place better than anyone. You can fix it. The words hit like a tidal wave. Elena had waited years to hear her mother acknowledge her worth, but now it felt hollow, born of necessity rather than love. She turned to Nora, seeking an anchor. Nora's hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that steadied her. You don't owe her anything, Nora whispered, just for Elena to hear. But if you do this, it's for you, not her. Elena nodded, her resolve hardening. I'll look at the books, she said to Diane. But this doesn't mean I forgive you. Diane's shoulders sagged with relief, but Elena felt no warmth. She moved to the office, a cramped room behind the counter where recipe books and ledgers were stacked haphazardly. Nora followed, closing the door behind them. This is a lot, Elle, she said, her voice soft. You sure you want to dive into this? I don't have a choice, Elena said, pulling out the ledger. If Sweet Tide goes under, it's not just Mom's legacy. It's mine too. Nora leaned against the desk, watching as Elena flipped through pages of numbers. The discrepancies were glaring. Missing deposits, inflated expenses, cash withdrawals labeled as miscellaneous. Sophia had been siphoning money for months, maybe years. Elena's stomach churned. She was supposed to be the responsible one, she muttered. Nora's hand rested on her shoulder. You're the responsible one. Always have been. Elena looked up, meeting Nora's gaze. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before a storm. She wanted to say something, to confess the feelings she'd buried since they were teenagers watching sunsets on the pier. But the weight of the bakery's crisis pressed down, and she turned back to the ledger. I need to figure out how much she took and how to cover it. They worked late into the night, the bakery silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old building. Nora dug through social media, tracking the spread of the scandal. It's bad, she said, showing Elena her phone. Posts on X called Sweet Tide a scam, accusing the Harpers of greed. Locals were divided. Some defended the bakery's history, others demanded answers. We need a plan to rebuild trust, Nora said. Fast. Elena rubbed her temples. We need money first. The bank's circling like sharks. Nora hesitated, then said, I've got some savings. Not much, but it could help with a payment to keep them off your back. Elena shook her head. No way. This isn't your mess. It's yours, Nora said firmly. And I'm not letting you drown. The offer hung there. Another layer to the unspoken bond between them. Elena wanted to argue, but the gratitude in her chest was overwhelming. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I need to do this my way." By dawn, Elena had a rough plan. Cut non-essential costs, renegotiate supplier contracts, and launch a community campaign to win back customers. But the numbers still didn't add up. They needed a miracle, or at least $50,000 to save the bakery. As the first light filtered through the windows, Diane reappeared, her face etched with worry. "What's the plan?" she asked. Elena stood, exhaustion and determination warring in her veins. "We fight," she said. "But I'm doing this for the bakery, not for you. You don't get to call me a disappointment and then beg for my help." Diane's eyes welled up, but Elena didn't soften. She turned to Nora. "Can you get me every post about this scandal? We need to know what we're up against." Nora nodded, already typing. "On it." As Diane left the room, Elena felt a shift inside her. This wasn't just about saving Sweet Tide. It was about proving she was enough, lesbian, stubborn, and all. The next morning, Astoria buzzed with gossip, the scandal spreading like wildfire. Elena stood behind Sweet Tide's counter, serving coffee to a trickle of curious customers, their whispers cutting deeper than their stares. She felt exposed, like the bakery's glass windows were a spotlight on her family's shame. Nora had spent the night compiling a dossier of social media posts, printing out the most damaging ones. "This one's got traction," she said, sliding a sheet across the counter. A post on X from a local influencer read, "Sweet Tide's been fleecing us for years. Sophia Harper's a thief, and the family's complicit. Boycott." It had over 2,000 reposts. Elena's jaw tightened. Sophia's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was public, and it was tearing down everything Elena had ever loved. "We need to respond," Nora said, her voice steady. "A statement, something authentic. People need to hear from you, not Diane." "Me." Elena's heart raced. "I'm not the face of this place. Mom always made sure of that." Nora leaned closer, her green eyes fierce. "Maybe it's time you were. You're the one who's been holding this together. I'll show them who you are." Elena hesitated, the weight of years of being sidelined pressing down. But Nora's belief in her was a lifeline. "Okay," she said finally. "But I need to find Sophia first. I need to know why." Nora drove her to Sophia's apartment, a sleek condo overlooking the Columbia River. The door was unlocked, the place eerily quiet. Clothes were strewn across the floor, and a half-packed suitcase sat on the couch. "She's gone," Elena said, her voice hollow. A note on the kitchen counter caught her eye, scribbled in Sophia's loopy handwriting. "I'm sorry. I couldn't stop. Tell Mom I love her." Elena's hand shook as she handed the note to Nora. "She's not coming back to fix this, is she?" Nora's jaw tightened. "No. But you can." They returned to the bakery where Diane was pacing, her phone glued to her ear. "The bank's giving us 2 weeks," she said, hanging up. "We need $50,000 or they foreclose." Elena's plan took shape over the next few hours. She drafted a statement for the bakery's social media. Her words raw but honest. "Sweet Tide is my home, my heart. My sister made a mistake and I'm heartbroken. But I'm here fighting to save this legacy. Come see us. Let's rebuild together." Nora posted it, and within hours it had hundreds of shares, locals pledging support. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. That evening, Elena and Nora sat on the pier, sharing a thermos of coffee. The air was crisp, the stars bright above the ocean. "You were incredible today," Nora said, her voice soft. "I've always known you were strong, but damn Elle." Elena's cheeks warmed. "I couldn't have done it without you." Nora's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "You don't have to do anything alone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here. Always." Elena's heart pounded. She wanted to close the distance between them, to kiss Nora under the starlit sky. But the bakery's shadow loomed, and she pulled back, fear winning out. "We should get back," she said, standing. Nora's face fell, but she nodded. The next day, Elena threw herself into saving Sweet Tide. She renegotiated with suppliers, offering to pay in installments. She baked her grandmother's famous cinnamon rolls, the scent drawing in curious locals. A few regulars returned, their support tentative but real. But the bank's deadline loomed, and the numbers still didn't add up. Then a break. Nora found a lead on X about a local investor, Margaret Cole, who'd saved struggling businesses before. Elena met her at a cafe, her nerves fraying. Margaret, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, listened as Elena poured out the bakery's story. Her love for it, Sophia's betrayal, her fight to save it. "I like your passion," Margaret said. "But I need collateral. Something to prove you're all in." Elena swallowed hard. The only thing she had was her grandmother's recipe book, a handwritten relic of Sweet Tide's soul. Handing it over felt like giving up a piece of herself, but she did it. Margaret nodded. "I'll cover the $50,000. But you've got 6 months to turn this around, or I own the recipes." Elena left the cafe, her heart a mix of relief and dread. She found Nora waiting outside, her camera slung around her neck. "You got it?" Nora asked. "Yeah," Elena said. "But I might have just sold my soul." Nora's hand brushed her cheek, a fleeting touch that made Elena's breath catch. "You're not alone in this," Nora said. "We'll figure it out. Together." The bakery hummed with cautious hope over the next week. Elena's statement had sparked a wave of support, with locals crowding Sweet Tide, their orders a quiet rebellion against the scandal. But the $50,000 from Margaret Cole was a ticking clock, and Elena felt its weight every moment. She threw herself into the work, baking from dawn to dusk, her hands moving with the muscle memory of years spent perfecting her craft. Nora was her shadow, snapping photos for social media, crafting posts that showcased Elena's dedication. One image, a close-up of Elena's flour-dusted hands shaping dough, her hazel eyes fierce with determination, went viral, shared thousands of times with captions like, "This is the real Sweet Tide." But Diane's presence was a constant strain. She hovered, offering half-hearted apologies that felt more like guilt than remorse. "I didn't know Sophia was struggling," Diane said one evening as Elena cleaned the counters. "I thought she was better suited." Elena's grip on the rag tightened. "Better suited because she's straight? Because she fits your idea of perfect?" Diane's face crumpled. "I didn't mean it like that. I wanted stability." "You wanted control," Elena snapped. "And now look at us." Diane left without another word, and Elena's anger gave way to exhaustion. She sank onto a stool, burying her face in her hands. Nora appeared, sliding a cup of tea across the counter. "You okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. "No," Elena admitted. "I'm terrified. What if I can't save this place? What if I'm not enough?" Nora knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "You are enough. You've always been enough. And I'm not just saying that because," she hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "Because I love you, Elle." The words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Elena's heart stopped, then raced. She'd known deep down that Nora's feelings mirrored her own, but hearing it aloud was like stepping into sunlight after years in the dark. "Nora," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I love you too. I always have." Nora's smile was radiant, but before she could respond, the bakery door swung open. A woman in her 20s clutching a phone stormed in. "You're Elena Harper?" she demanded. "I'm from the Astoria Gazette. We've got proof Sophia's been selling your recipes to a chain in Portland. Care to comment?" Elena's world tilted. The recipes, her grandmother's legacy, the heart of Sweet Tide, stolen and sold? She felt Nora's hand on her back, grounding her. "No comment," Elena said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "But we're fighting for this bakery. Spread that." The reporter left and Elena turned to Nora, her resolve stealing. "We need to find those recipes. If they're out there, we're getting them back." Nora nodded, already pulling out her laptop. They spent the night digging through X tracking leads. A post from a Portland bakery mentioned a new sourdough, suspiciously similar to Sweet Tide's signature loaf. Elena's blood boiled. Sophia hadn't just taken money, she'd taken their soul. The next day, Elena drove to Portland, Nora at her side. The bakery, a sleek chain called Rise and Grind, was everything Sweet Tide wasn't. Sterile, corporate, soulless. The manager, a nervous man named Greg, confirmed the purchase. "We bought the recipes fair and square," he said. "From Sophia Harper." Elena's voice was ice. Those recipes weren't hers to sell. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Back in Astoria, Elena hired a local attorney, using the last of her personal savings. The legal battle would be brutal, but she had no choice. Margaret Cole called, her tone sharp. You've got 5 months left, Elena. Don't let this drama sink you. That night, Elena and Nora sat on the cliff where the story began, the ocean a restless mirror of Elena's heart. I can't lose those recipes, Elena said. They're all I have left of Grandma. Nora's arm slipped around her, warm and steady. You won't lose them. And you've got me. Elena leaned into her, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like coming home. It was tentative at first, then fierce, years of unspoken love pouring out. For the first time, Elena felt like she could face anything, as long as Nora was there. The legal battle consumed Elena's days, but Nora was her constant, her strength. They were a team now, not just in saving Sweet Tide but in building something new between them. Their kiss on the cliff had changed everything, turning years of longing into a love that felt like salvation. The attorney, a sharp woman named Clara, worked tirelessly to reclaim the recipes. Rise and Grind's lawyers played hardball, but Clara uncovered evidence that Sophia had no legal right to sell the intellectual property. The case gained traction, with locals rallying behind Elena. Sweet Tide's counters were crowded again, the community's support a fragile but growing lifeline. Diane, however, remained a shadow. She helped in the bakery, but her apologies were stilted, her presence a reminder of past hurts. One evening, as Elena closed up, Diane lingered. I was wrong, she said, her voice trembling. About you, about Sophia, about everything. I pushed you away because I was scared. I didn't understand. Elena's heart ached, but forgiveness wasn't easy. I needed you to see me, Mom. Not as a disappointment, but as your daughter. I see you now, Diane said, tears falling. I'm so proud of you. The words were a balm, but Elena wasn't ready to fully let her in. I need time, she said. Diane nodded, stepping back, and for the first time, Elena felt the power shift. She wasn't invisible anymore. The court ruled in Sweet Tide's favor 3 months later. Rise and Grind returned the recipes and Elena's collateral, her grandmother's recipe book, was safe. Margaret Cole extended the loan terms, impressed by Elena's tenacity. The bakery was still in debt, but the community's trust was returning, bolstered by Nora's relentless social media campaign. Her photos of Elena baking, laughing with customers, and holding Nora's hand in quiet moments told a story of resilience and love. On the 6-month deadline, Elena stood in Sweet Tide, the scent of fresh bread wrapping around her like a hug. The bakery was alive again, its tables filled with locals sharing stories. Nora slipped behind the counter, her arm around Elena's waist. You did it, she whispered. We did it, Elena corrected, her heart full. She looked at the framed photo on the wall, her grandmother smiling in an apron, the woman who'd taught her to bake with love. Elena had saved her legacy, not just for her family, but for herself. That night they celebrated on the pier, the ocean calm under a full moon. Elena took Nora's hand, her voice steady. I want to run Sweet Tide with you. Not just as my partner in this, but in everything. Nora's eyes sparkled, her smile wide. Thought you'd never ask. They kissed, the world fading to just the two of them. Their love a quiet triumph over years of pain. Sweet Tide would thrive, not because of Diane or Sophia, but because Elena had fought for it, and for herself. The scandal had broken her family, but it had also rebuilt her, stronger, loved, and whole. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.